Hi, parents, guardians, and students. I absolutely love teaching news article writing to students. Let's take a look at how to write a fantastic article together. I've suggested to students to organize their news articles into 5 parts. Start off with a catchy headline, follow up with a dateline, which states when the article was written. Our first paragraph, otherwise known as the lead paragraph, answers the questions who, what, where, when, why, and how. Our second paragraph adds some color to the lead paragraph by including some quotes and extra facts aimed at hooking the reader. Lastly, we sign off with a byline. Our news article organizational structure is based upon the inverted pyramid strategy used by many reporters. The lead paragraph answers the 5 W's and 1 H. The second paragraph, which adds color that includes quotes and extra facts, aims at additional essential information for the reader to consume. And occasionally there's a third paragraph with less essential details that may or may not be included within the article. Let's take a look at our newspaper article writing graphic organizer available for download on my webpage. One of the reasons why I love this unit so much is I get into role and conduct a press conference, having students ask questions and record notes in this portion of the organizer, trying to get information to assist with their lead paragraph. I do want to note that there are 2 spellings for the word lead. The more formal or antiquated version is spelled L-E-D-E. Before starting this writing unit or having any press conferences, students are taught the difference between thin and thick questioning. Thin questions are essentially hand questions. The respondent can easily provide those in a word or two, or the answers can be found with a simple Google search. Thick questions can also be likened to head or heart questions. These questions ask the respondent to infer the answer, or to express their own emotions and feelings and connections to a particular situation. Our Reader's Toolkit webpage has a handy cue chart that can be used alongside the questioning part of our graphic organizer. A cue chart can be utilized alongside the note-taking portion of a graphic organizer to aid in coming up with thick questions that can be provided to somebody who's being interviewed in a press conference setting.
The question matrix is a useful tool to introduce the idea of a hierarchy to questioning. Along the top axis, we have the concepts of is, did, can, would, will, and might. As we move from left to right, the questions and the concepts being started in our questions, these prefix, are actually asking for higher order thinking. Now, this relates to something called Bloom's taxonomy of thinking, and it is an element of teaching and educational research that we try to incorporate into our questions. Students should be aware of their teachers talking to them about a hierarchy of questioning and a hierarchy of thinking. For example, they are aware that comprehension is the lowest order of thinking and inference is higher order thinking. This manifests itself in the prefixes to these questions. Once we go from is, a visual observation, a comprehension activity, we move up and we start to move into areas like speculation with will, would, and might. As we come down the lower axis, again the hierarchy is there. What would apply itself to a simple comprehension, a simple one-word phrase, or so on, answer. As we move down the hierarchy of thinking and up the levels of complexity, again we move into speculation. Therefore, as we move across the grid, the concepts and questions that are being posed to children become higher and higher. we move through a hierarchy of questioning. The how might question would require a deal of understanding, opinion, and speculation from the student that makes it the higher order questioning. All of these matrices are displayed in history classrooms at Plimsoll School and are there to prompt the teachers in their hierarchy of questioning and also in the responses that students give during the course of their education. Ideally, questions posed by children and placed into the appropriate boxes on this grid could be answered by other children, therefore showing how hierarchy of questioning and answering applies to history in a student's learning.
Students are then asked to reconstitute the notes taken from the press conference and write a catchy headline and a fantastic lead paragraph that answers the questions who, what, where, when, why, and how, and lead into their second paragraph, which adds color, quotes, and cool facts. Let's take a look at a strong work sample. It should be noted that the following news article is actually based upon a true event. The bold and crass headline certainly grabs my attention. The lead paragraph answers the questions who, what, where, when, why, and how, and invites the reader to read on to learn more about the individual who's actually conducting this press conference that they have just attended. The second, or color paragraph, includes a combination of 3 quotes and or colorful facts that add to the story. There's a clinching sentence, wrapping things up, followed by a byline. Much like with narrative writing, news article writing coalesces so very many of the success criteria we've learned throughout the year. Thus, it's worthwhile to review prior to writing, and then upon completion, working through the checklist provided to ensure that everything has been done to the best of your child's abilities. I have plenty of tips and tools to assist you in writing a strong news article. Firstly, our Writer's Toolkit webpage is a must-see. It has transition words, emotion and feeling synonyms, even video tutorials outlining the steps of our proofreading plan. A lead paragraph should be written in past tense. And for many young students, it's difficult having them develop their reporter voice. As a result, I asked them to visualize being thrust in front of a camera and placed on live television, reporting on what has just happened before their very own eyes. Students can try starting their lead paragraph using the date. For example, on Tuesday, April 7, 2015, aliens landed. If the first verb is conjugated correctly, other verbs usually follow suit. They can also try the yesterday strategy. Students can place an imaginary yesterday at the beginning of every sentence. As they read their sentences out loud, they can check and see if the verb has been conjugated properly for past tense. Young writers tend to also repeat information. As a result, I've suggested that once a student has incorporated a piece of information from their note-taking organizer, that they ought to cross it off or highlight it as a visual cue that it has already been included in their article. Figuring out how to directly quote someone can also be challenging. We need to immediately state who is being quoted, followed by a dialogue tag. This handy link, available on our news article writing website, can take you to another page that has a list of said synonyms. After the dialogue tag is a colon, which introduces what is being recorded and stated verbatim, meaning word for word. What's being quoted is ensconced or wrapped around or bracketed by quotation marks. And appropriate punctuation is placed at the end of every sentence that is included.
Quote, paraphrase, summarize. What's the difference? For elementary students. When doing research, there are three main ways you can use the information you find: quoting, paraphrasing, or summarizing. The first step is to take notes from each of the sources you found. When you have all your notes, you can decide how you will use that information. Here's an example of the notes we took from the Redpath Museum document about Sarah, a Triceratops that lived in Saskatchewan. To begin, let's look at quoting. A quote is when you put someone else's exact words in your work. When you do this, you have to use quotation marks and you have to say what and who you are quoting from. For example, if we quoted, Triceratops were quadrupeds, they walked on four legs, and herbivores, plant eaters. From this document, it would look like this. Because we're taking someone else's exact words, we have to say where we got the words from. This is called citing. For example, here we would add in parenthesis, Bruno Paul Stenson, Redpath Museum. If we don't do this, then we are plagiarizing. Plagiarism is like stealing. It's like taking something that doesn't belong to you and pretending that it's yours. Another way is paraphrasing. To paraphrase means to take the ideas of other people and rewrite them in your own words. So let's take a look at our document again. It says, Triceratops were quadrupeds, they walked on four legs, and herbivores, plant eaters. This could be paraphrased as, Triceratops had four legs and ate plants. Because we are still taking someone else's ideas, we have to cite where we got them from. Here again, we would add in parenthesis, Bruno Paul Stenson, Redpath Museum. If we don't do this, we are plagiarizing. Lastly, let's look at summarizing. To summarize means that you will write the same information you found, but using less words and taking out the parts that do not answer your research questions. An easy way to create a summary is to write it from the notes you took from your sources. This helps to make sure that your summary is written in your own words instead of using the author's words. For example, here are the notes we took from our source. Sarah is a Triceratops dinosaur. Triceratops lived in Saskatchewan and Alberta. They lived 65 million years ago in the Cretaceous era. Triceratops grew to be 9 meters long, 3 meters high. They weighed 6 to 12 tons. Triceratops walked on four legs, they ate plants. To summarize, we could simply write, Triceratops were a type of dinosaur that walked on four legs and ate plants. They weighed 6 to 12 tons and were found in Alberta and Saskatchewan. We are still using someone else's ideas, so we still have to cite where we got the ideas from. So, we should add in parenthesis, Bruno Paul Stenson, Redpath Museum. Again, guess what? If we don't, we are plagiarizing. Finally, when doing research, you should always have many sources of information. This will help you find the best information to answer your questions. Also, remember that it doesn't matter how you're using someone else's ideas, you have to cite where and who the idea is from every time. To learn more about taking notes, please watch Taking Notes for Research in Elementary School.